Welcome to the 2025 Homegrown Concert Series at the American Folklife Center of the Library of Congress. I'm Steve Winick. For many years, the Homegrown Concert Series has presented the best in traditional music and dance right here in Washington, D.C. at the Library of Congress. And this year, during the month of May, which is Jewish American Heritage Month, we are very happy to have presented Susana Behar. And whenever we can, we like to do an interview with the artists that have appeared in the concert series. And for that reason, I am here with Susana Behar, who is going to tell us a little bit about her music and her traditions. So welcome, Susana.
Thank you very much.
It's wonderful to have you here. And I'll just start by saying, usually we do these interviews before the concert. And so now I've actually seen the concert and it was magnificent. So I encourage everyone to go to the Library of Congress website and look for that concert if you're seeing this interview separately from the concert, because both videos should be on the Library of Congress website. So thank you for a beautiful concert last night.
Thank you. I'm happy you got to see it. You were there.
It was wonderful, and I wouldn't have missed it, but it was great to be there. So you have a very interesting background, and I'd love if you'd begin by telling us a little bit about your life in Cuba, where you were born, and particularly how your Sephardic ancestors came to be in Cuba.
Yes, I was born in Cuba. My maternal side is the Sephardic side from Turkey, and my paternal side, non-Jewish, Cuban of Spanish heritage. My grandparents, some of my grandparents on my father's side were from Asturias in Spain. Like my father was second generation Spanish immigrants. And then my Turkish Sephardic grandparents came at the beginning of the 20th century, around 1917, one of them, and the other one a little later. They met in Cuba, but I think it was sort of arranged for them to meet. Yeah. And they got married and had 4 children. One of them is my mother. Well, they all passed on, and this makes me think that all these days I have been thinking, in preparation to being here, performing, about them, all of them, because it's such an important moment for me, and I'm sure if they can see it, they would be very happy. And
certainly one of the things about traditional music and musical traditions is that they connect us to our past.
Absolutely.
And our own ancestors and other ancestors around the world.
Absolutely.
So we're really happy that you're able to make that connection. I think a lot of people are not familiar with any Jewish community in Cuba. Could you explain a little about what it was like being a Jewish person in Cuba at that time?
I really cannot explain what it was like because I left when I was 9.
Yeah.
So, and also, being that my father was not Jewish, and we lived a little bit outside the center of Havana, where most of the Jewish people lived. So, and at the time, I was ready to go to school. The Jewish schools were closed. So I was going to a public school near my home. So my Jewish connection was really from the familial, completely. So I would go to my grandparents, and if you ask me exactly if I went for holidays or Shabbat dinners, I could not tell you, because I think that my exit from Cuba was quite traumatic.
Yeah.
It was not regular. I left alone with my mother. So I think many of my memories from that early childhood were blocked, unfortunately.
Sorry to hear that.
Unfortunately. Yeah. So I remember things, little events, but I cannot tell you certain things. I cannot say yes or no because I don't have those memories vividly.
Do you remember any Cuban music from your time there?
Yes, I do, because on my father's side, his oldest brother was my favorite uncle. He was an amazing man. He was a musician not by profession, but he was a musician, an amateur musician, and composer, and played the guitar, and sang beautifully, and adored me. I was the only girl on that side of the family, so I was like really adored by them, and he particular because I always sang since I was very little. My mother once told me that I was maybe 2 or 3, and I was in the garden in our house, and a man went by that lived in the neighborhood, and he was a musician, and I was just singing, a little girl, and he said, she's going to be a singer one day. I just remember that my mother told me when I was an adult already. But in any case, my uncle took a lot of pride in teaching me and sharing music with me. So I learned a lot of old Cuban songs from him. Like the song I did last night is a classic,
right.
20 años de María Teresa Vera. And that and others, I remember songs that he taught me at the time.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing how musical memory works differently sometimes from other memories. So you
Yes.
remember a song, but you won't remember context or some
Absolutely.
of that other, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And on the side of my Sephardic grandparents, it's a little different. My grandmother was a very serious woman, maybe a sad woman, I don't know. But again, it's something that my grandfather died when I was 5. So the memory is very limited. I remember him physically, but I don't remember interactions.
Yeah.
With her, I remember more of the interactions. And I think she did, I would not say sing, but and you see why I say that. Like, she would sometimes have melodies in her lips and sing. And sometimes I did too, and that I remember. That's one of the few memories I have of being in her house, just helping her around and singing, because I always did sing. And she would tell me, in Ladino, she would say, Hija, si vas a cantar, canta que te oiga. If you are going to sing, sing strongly, because I used to do it softly. My grandfather maybe was sleeping, and you see, that is a memory I have.
Yeah.
And maybe there were many other moments, but that is something I remember very clearly.
Well, you've been singing to be heard for many years now. So.
Yes, actually,
so
yes.
That's great.
Thank God.
Wow. So you alluded to your exit from Cuba. Can you tell us a little about that? I mean, I know it's a traumatic memory.
It is. We were, this is 1965. Most of the Jewish families had left in the early 60s. And for some reason, we were still there. And at that point, we got visas from the Jewish agency, the Hayas. And there were 3 flights allowed through the Jewish agency, and we were in one of them. So our flights were for December 1965. My brother turned 15 in October 65, and a law started in September 65 that the boys from 15 to 27 couldn't leave the country. So it was only 3 months before our expected exit. So my family made a decision that I don't judge, because I don't know how they got to that difficult decision, that my mother would live with me and try to take my brother out, like a family reunion, blah, 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 because nothing was known. Everything was part of the unknown realm. And my father would stay with my brother, who was a kid, you know. So that's what happened. We left in December, but in March of 66, they decided to participate in an escape from Cuba with friends, acquaintances that planned this exit in a plane that was going to be hijacked was hijacked, an internal flight in Cuba, but they were cut. So they ended up in jail, of course, for many years.
Yeah.
My brother even. And my aunt and my uncle, the musician. And we didn't see each other for 15 years. So yeah.
Yeah. So how did you get to see them again?
So, like anything and everything in Cuba, in 1979, a law, if I can use that word, I don't know, came out saying that my father was out of prison already. Thankfully, my father's was given only 10 years, and he came out in 6 years out of prison, and my uncle in 7, my aunt a little less. My grandmother, who was also in the plane, thankfully was not taken. My brother did some time and then did also the military service, but at a very young age. So in 1979, they decided that ex-political prisoners, before the infamous Mariel that came to the coasts of Florida, right before, in 1979, or 78 actually, deciding that any ex-prisoner and their families could leave the country if they had family outside that would do whatever needed to be done. So we found out, I think my mother and I were visiting Argentina and we read it in the paper. So we came back to Venezuela and my mother started immediately all the paperwork and everything needed. And in 1979, at the end of 1979, they came out. They came out to Venezuela and lived there for a while, like a year, and then decided to come to Miami, so we followed. I was finishing my master's in Venezuela. I finished my studies and went to Miami too, and that's where I've been all these years.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about Venezuela a little bit, because that's a country that I think most Americans don't know that much about, but a beautiful country and a lot of culture there. So explain your musical education and your musical life in Venezuela.
I went to a Jewish school. The moment we arrived in Venezuela, first of all, I have to say, had the most amazing Jewish community. Really a very special Jewish community, because there was no separation, which happens in many other Latin American communities that have large Sephardic communities and large Ashkenazi communities. They are very separate. They even have schools, separate schools. We had separate synagogues because the rituals can be different, but the school was one. So we all studied in the same school, and no child would be without schooling for lack of funds. The school had a system, the community had a system of assistance that was, I don't know if there was any other parallel in Latin America, I'm talking about. But when we arrived, although I had never been in a Jewish school, my mother really wanted me to be in a Jewish school. So she went to the school and she said, look, I just came out of Cuba. I don't have the means, but I want her to be here. So they took me, and I studied my first years with full scholarship there. And eventually my mother, of course, could pay for it, but it was a great school academically, but also the Jewish education was fantastic. We had great teachers of the language and Bible studies and music, and so that's where I really started singing, like I said last night in the concert, mostly in Hebrew. And maybe, a little Spanish, Venezuelan music, but I think I went more into the Venezuelan music when I went to college. And I went to study science, and incredibly, there was a lot of people that were musicians as well. So it was a school of scientists that were crazy musicians, and we had music in the green areas. We got together all the time, and so that was my first exposure really to Venezuelan music. Yeah.
And what did you note as sort of, I mean, so you mentioned in your school that they taught the language, but you were referring to Hebrew there, were you, or did they teach you Ladino as well? And
No,
so,
no.
So it was,
and unfortunately, and that's the only critic I have to
Yeah.
to my old school, that they even had Yiddish classes where I wasn't required to take. If I wanted, I could, but I wasn't required. The Ashkenazi kids were required to take it, but they didn't have any Ladino. And years later, unfortunately, years later, I found out that some of my teachers that came from Israel were Sephardim from Bulgaria, there was a couple that were from Bulgaria, but already Israeli born, but the parents, and another one from a Turkish family, and I didn't know at the time, because, well, the Ashkenazi culture was the predominant culture, like in this country.
Right.
And that's why, and I have to say it, that's why for me it was so important to celebrate Jewish American Heritage Month with a Sephardic music concert. That for me was very meaningful.
Yeah, it's true that our Jewish community in the U.S. is primarily Ashkenazi, and so but I think the Ashkenazi Jews here are very curious about Sephardic culture and Ladino, and they're interested in it. Yeah, so.
I think much more now, because when I started, when I moved to Miami, I started singing with a group, sort of like in parties and things like that. And we had a show that we presented in certain communities, Hebrew, Yiddish, and 2 Ladino songs that I would do. And many times people would come to the stage after, and they didn't have any idea what was that all about. They were all Jews, but they didn't know why I was singing in Spanish.
Right.
Well, it's not Spanish, and it's a Jewish language. So it's now I'm very happy, because now everywhere they are presenting Ladino, whether it is a concert or a conference or a lecture or anything. So definitely there is an interest.
Yeah, that's great.
Yes.
So did you first start learning Ladino songs all the way back in Cuba, or was it in Venezuela, or was it not till after you came here?
Look, I always say, because I believe it was there, because my grandmother, I have a memory that she would sing, but also my mother also sang beautifully, and sometimes she and her sisters would sing the very popular, funny even, Ladino songs. So yes, I was exposed to it since I was a child, but it was not until I was an adult that I made a decision to really go into it. Absolutely. The more I listened, the more I fell in love with it. And then I always felt, well, what a beautiful way to honor my ancestors. So, and if I like it. If I didn't like it, maybe I wouldn't have been able to do it, but I do like it very much. So.
Yeah, so where do you find Sephardic repertoire? How do you go about that?
There are many ways, of course. At the beginning, I would go and listen to artists, other artists that had been doing it before me, like Judy Franco, and then Flora Behar, and Los Pájaros Sephardis from Turkey, and the Parvarim in Israel, who also did, even Yoram Gaon did a beautiful, beautiful record of Sephardic music. So first listen to other artists. And then I started listening to recordings of field work by musicologists, mostly from Susana Behar, who is one of the most recognized musicologists that really recorded a lot. So sometimes I go to that and I listen to things, and one of the songs I have in my CD, I listened from one of her recordings. It's called Irme Quiero, and I can remember right now who was the informer, but and then we did our interpretation. That is what we can do, and there are different ways of seeing that subject and a lot of opinions. But I always say that traditional music is not static. It evolves, and it evolves with us, the performers. It's impossible to think that we are going to do it the way it was done 50 years ago, let alone 100.
Right.
Or even before, when we don't even have recordings. So it's, and that's the beauty of it also, no? Because when the Sephardim or the Spanish Jews were expelled from the Iberian Peninsula, and they established themselves in so many different lands, even the music that developed from those lands, they're not exactly the same.
Right.
The people that went to Morocco and the rest of the north of Africa, and the people that went to what used to be the Ottoman Empire, what developed from there, even the language, the way the language continued to develop, is not the same. So it is what it is. We take from where we go, and here now. I take from my musicians. They are not coming from my culture. Right. They bring their culture. And we together, when we start preparing a song, we discuss, and I try I do tell them, this is the sound that I'm looking for, and we work together, but they bring their aesthetics also. So I think that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, and I think it's also true and very interesting that with Ladino music specifically, and then Latin American music, there already are common roots because the Spanish root is there. And if you go back far enough, you were talking about learning hearing old Cuban songs when you were in Cuba, and I wondered if any of them were, romanzas that came from Spain that would be the same ones.
Why not?
Yeah.
Why not? Absolutely.
You do have crossover even in repertoire.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, and you see it with the romanzas in particular, in that that I just mentioned from the areas of the Ottoman Empire and the areas you see also the same romanza would sound differently because it has a different melody and a different rhythm, and yes, of course, you see that. And now that you mentioned that, I do have a concert project that I present that is called Ladino Meets Latino, and people love it because there is a flow in the concert, and I never intend to do anything that is fusion or none of that. If I'm going to do a Cuban song, I'm going to do it as Cuban as I am permitted to do, with what I know and what I have, and the musicians. And if I'm going to do a Sephardic song, the same thing. So there was no fusion in that. There is no fusion in that project, but there is an encounter of cultures, and that you can feel it, and you can see it, and you can experience it when you are in the concert. Yeah. And I think it's one of our best projects that. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you for telling us about that. And it's not only an encounter, but an interaction, and it allows people to perceive these connections that we're talking about.
Absolutely.
They're all the fact that they're cousins. I mean, even the word Ladino and Latino are actually the same word. Of course.
I know, although it's different. Yes. Yes.
So so it's funny how connected they are, but as you say, very. Even within the Ladino repertoire, you find these differences from different parts. So let's talk about just a couple of the songs that you did last night. I mean, you sang. I mean, one that was interesting to me, just for other reasons, is La Serena, the mermaid song.
Yes.
So what's the history of that song that you know?
Well, that is such a well-known song. Even Flori did it.
Yeah, right.
Even Flori did it. She called it La Torre. and some people call it La Torre, and some people La Serena. And well, it's the known ballad of the girl that is put in the tower by the father. Depends on what you read. The reason is different, right. And she calls to the sailors, and of course there's always going to be one that falls in love, and there's always has to be in the creation some love, right. and some longing in our Sephardic songs. So I'm sorry that I cannot say exactly right now, but
it's a widespread song.
It's
a lot of people would.
Yes, a widespread song. A lot of people have done it. Some people have done it more in the flamenco sound, because it takes you there with the melody.
Yeah.
Actually, with the guitarist that I used to work, that I mentioned last night,
yeah.
My late friend Jose Luis de la Paz, our version sounded more flamenco, and I know that Sephardic music is not flamenco, right. but he was a flamenco guitarist, and he had to inform everything he did a little bit with that, and it was okay.
Yeah.
It was okay. Yes.
Well, and isn't it true that before you did Ladino Meets Latino, you had done a flamenco, Sephardic and flamenco project?
Well, I had done Andalusian and Sephardic project.
Yeah.
When I met him, he moved to Miami, and for some reason he went to the Centro Cultural Español, and he said he wanted to do a project of Sephardic music if they knew anybody in Miami that did Sephardic music. And I had performed there already a couple of times. So they contacted us, and he came to me with this idea of doing a project where we could, again, find this encounter of Sephardic music and Andalusian music. Mm-hmm. He had done some field work in Andalusia in his younger years, and he had some ideas, and we started working on that, and the concert was absolutely beautiful. We only presented it 4 times in Miami. We wanted to travel with it, but it never happened. It was called Of Essence and Time. Mm-hmm. And his wife at the time was a flamenco dancer, modern flamenco dancer. So there was dance in the concert, and there was poetry. It was really very beautiful. But again, we didn't mean to do any fusion, right. anything like that. These are the 2 traditions, and we find that there is an encounter, and that we could present it like that in all its beauty.
Yeah.
So that's what we did.
Great.
Yes.
Yeah, and I recall that in the concert last night you did one that was from the Bulgarian Sephardic community.
Yes.
Las Casas de la Boda. Is that, yeah.
Yes, that is a wedding song. I heard it from professional singers that worked very close to Susana Behar. Actually, the CD was done with her, but they are. He's a folklorist as well in Spain. His name escapes right now, but it's okay. So I heard him do it. He does it together. He does 2 wedding songs together in his CD, and I recorded them together in my CD. A little different, but then in that one, Jose Luis played and put something in the second song. This time we decided to do only the first one, Las Casas de la Boda. The second one is called Los Kiddushin de la Novia. And Michelle decided to set it to music, because I used to do it a cappella, or percussion, or with only percussion. So Michelle decided to do an arrangement, and I found that it was really beautiful. So I said, okay, let's do it that way. Challenging, that song, in 9, challenging, but lovely.
Beautiful song, yeah.
Beautiful. I hope it came out well, you know.
I think it did. It sounded great to me. So.
It's great.
Yeah. And then you did one from Istanbul as well.
I did the one that I did with percussion, alone with oh my God. Yeah, that's, it was a little fast. He killed me last night. He absolutely killed me, but I had fun. Siberia ya la rana. Yes, that's a children's song, and it talks about 3 different animals preparing some food items and sharing with their friends.
Yeah.
It's a fun song, and doing it like that, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's funny because in English we have a famous frog and mouse song,
Oh,
which is
really?
completely different. They get married, and so it's a whole other song.
But
the
you
fact
see,
that it's a frog
there's
and a
a
mouse,
relation.
it seems like there might be a relation going
Yeah.
way back. So yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned in your concert last night, Flora Behar, who was a resident of this region of the U.S. and who has appeared in our concert series more than once.
Yes.
What was your relation with her? I mean, how did you discover her music?
Like I mentioned last night, this good friend of mine, when I was really starting to give concerts, Ladino or Sephardic music concerts, I met him because he was preparing a guide of Sephardic culture and performers in Florida. Mm-hmm. And somebody told him to contact me. So I'm part of that guide. His name was David Simon. Mm-hmm. He was very active in the Sephardic community of Palm Beach. And he contacted me, and we immediately really became very good friends. Was a little older than me. And he brought that cassette of Flora Behar to me. And he said, you have to listen to this. It's beautiful. She's amazing. And I want you to do this song, Anderleto. And I right away fell in love with that song. It's a romanza, and it's very tragic, but I tend to go to the tragic.
Yeah.
I like to sing songs that really tell a story and that really move you. I want to move you when I'm singing.
Yeah.
And it's great to move you with a funny and happy song, but it's powerful to move you with
Absolutely.
With deep emotions.
Yeah.
So I fell in love with that song, and I started doing it. I've done it with all the guitarists I have worked with. Actually, Jose Luis did it in a rhythm of bulería when I did it with him, which has a lot of power. And then I had never done it with Michel, and I decided to do it for this concert with Michel, and I absolutely loved what he did with it.
Interesting, yeah.
Yes.
Very different arrangement.
Very different.
Yeah.
Also, the song that I did that is a poem of Solomon Ibn Gabirol that Jose Luis set to music. He did it completely different, and Michel took it and did a gorgeous arrangement too. So that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
And also it's a way to play tribute to Jose Luis.
Right.
To do his music.
Yeah.
And
That's again, we're connected not only to our ancestors, but to the people we learn from, the people we work with by these traditional songs.
And with Flori, I have a big regret that I was telling Howard Bass that was here last night, I was telling him that although sometimes I don't seem to be, I'm a shy person for many things. Yeah. And I always wanted to call her and say, I want to come and see you and be with you and spend a couple of days with you. And I never dared doing it. And then one day when we met because she came to perform, and I went to her concert, and they had told her that I sang. And without knowing me, she invited me to the stage so generously.
She is, yeah.
She was,
yeah.
Yeah. And Howard said that. He said she would have loved to have you and teach you. But well, she has anyway through her music. Right. I am currently artist in residence at the Deering Estate, which is a museum in a park in Miami. Mm-hmm. That was the home of Charles Deering, who was a very important conservationist and also lover of Spain. Mm-hmm. So somehow I presented a project related to the music, and I am artist in residence there. And in December, they always do a holiday exhibit. And every year, it's only Christmas. But since I was there, they asked me if I would decorate one of the areas for Hanukkah. So I said, of course. I didn't know what I was doing, but I said, of course, let's do it. So I said, okay, one of the things we're going to do, I'm going to perform this song by Flora Behar, Ocho Candelicas. We're going to record it, and we're going to have it in that room for people to see. And I printed a story, and the story of, a little bit about Flori, and all of those things for me are connections and tributes that you give to people that deserve it.
Yeah.
So, and people were really amazed to see, first of all, a Hanukkah exhibit, when every year they have seen only Christmas exhibits. We did a beautiful, really a beautiful presentation, and her music was part of it. So,
lovely.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So Miami must be an interesting venue or place for you to live, given that there's a strong Jewish community, a strong Cuban community, but they're not the same community, right? Do you fit into both in some ways?
Yeah. There's a large Cuban Jewish community.
Oh, that's good to know.
The Jubans.
Yeah, yeah.
They are called the Jubans.
Are they Sephardic or are they?
They're both.
Yeah.
And when they came, they founded synagogues, an Ashkenazi one and a Sephardic one. Temple Moses is the Sephardic congregation, where part of my family was involved in the founding of it, of my uncles and uncles and related part of the family, and the Ashkenazi synagogue, that is both of them in South Beach. But they're very together.
Yeah.
Because the Jewish Cuban community in Cuba was always together.
Yeah.
Like I said, religiously people always have different rituals, but all the parties and all the celebrations are together. So if I have a concert, it's not that the Sephardic people are going to come only.
Right.
You know, it could be in the Sephardic temple or it could be in an Ashkenazi temple. And sometimes I am invited to sing, of course, in mostly American synagogues, usually Reform, and they love. I've been invited many times, and like I said, people are really loving to learn and to experience the Sephardic culture, and particularly the music.
That's great. And you've also worked quite a bit with museums. You mentioned Deering, but also the History Miami Museum.
Yes.
Talk a little about your residency there.
Oh, that was a great residency. I was so honored when they invited me. I've had a relationship with the folk life in Florida for quite a few years, because I don't remember how many years ago. Do you know Bob Stone from the folk life?
Only
by name,
only
and
by name, and
Tina Bukovalas.
I know Tina,
you know
personally,
Tina,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
So they knew about me, and at one point they invited me. Bob actually recorded me many years ago, more than 20, 25, I don't remember. To be honest with you, I don't remember. And then I was invited to participate in the Florida Folk Festival that happens this weekend, and that I'm going to be there, not performing, but I'm going to go because we love that festival. I once heard that it was the oldest folk festival in the States.
It's quite old. I don't know if it's the oldest,
but it's 60 years, I think, something old, like that, or more, I don't know. So they invited me to participate, and I've participated 2 or 3 times. And then History Miami called me to be artist in residence. This is amazing. They called me, and 2 weeks later, the lockdown of the pandemic started. So the residency was supposed to start in September to December, and they called me in March. So we didn't really know what was going to happen, and we decided to go ahead and do it virtually.
Yeah.
So that was the only thing that I didn't get but I had performed there already. They have a series at the History Miami, they have a series where they present the culture of Miami, 305 culture or something, and I had performed there already, so they knew me already. And we did it virtually. I did several programs. I did 4 programs, one for children, live, but from the museum, live stream. And then I did a program in schools, live, with several schools, where I was talking to them about the culture and the music. It was beautiful. I had never worked with children, and that was for me an amazing experience. They asked so many interesting questions about my ancestors. I showed them pictures, and they were really very interested. And I did a cooking class from my kitchen, where I prepared some typical Sephardic dishes. It was during Hanukkah, so I did some fried dough. Oh God, I just forgot the name, but it will come back. And I prepared some other things, some ahead of time, some I finished it there, all live for a class. It was beautiful, and I sang in between birmuelos, I did. So, and the most important probably, or no, everything was very important because it was all a teaching experience for me and for the people that got to experience it. We did a concert. We recorded a concert, unfortunately without an audience, but absolutely like a live concert from the first song to the last, and a great theater with great sound, and they put it in their page, and it's there. So
that's great.
That was great.
So people should look for that as well.
Yes.
And we'll mention one more museum because we had a collaboration last night with the Whitesman National Museum of American Jewish History.
Yes.
They helped us put on this concert.
Yes.
And you've worked with them before as well, right?
Yes. I really don't know how it started. Dan Samuels and I were talking last night. Neither one remembers, but during pandemic, he contacted me to do something virtually. And we did a concert virtually. I don't remember. I think it was Jose Luis and me, just guitar and voice. And then he invited me to do a concert at the museum for a series that they have called Secret Chords in 2 years ago, yes, in 23. And at the same time, I was invited to sing at the International Ladino Day celebration in New York. So Dan was very, very gracious in trying to do it at the same time. So we did it, I did in New York first, and 2 days later I went to Philadelphia to do that. And then he also, since he worked together with the Kennedy Center for the Jewish American Heritage Month last year, I was also invited to participate in that with great musicians. So, and then this.
Yeah.
I'm full of joy and gratitude.
We're very, very glad to have you, and we love the concert, as I said. So
thank you.
Yeah, so thank you for being here. And I wonder if there are other, you just mentioned that you played with other great musicians, if there are other Sephardic musicians around that you would recommend to people for? Sure,
there are many good musicians here. There's Sara Oeste that probably some of the audience, I'm sure, know. There is a person that I met more recently, Lily Henley, and she comes more from the Americana background, and first of all, she sings beautifully, and she does a very nice work together. And then there are, of course, people that are not so active now, but there's a lot of recordings around. And in Israel, there's a lot of people. There's more Karbasi in Israel, and I'm trying to think. There's a lot of groups that do it in Europe differently, I would say. There's a lot of groups that do it in an early music style differently. I tend to go more with the people that do it more folky, even if it's not the way that we think it was. But I think it was always folky. Yeah. I think it was always more earthy, like it's more the people sang at home with their friends and their family. And even if you do it on a stage, I think I like to keep that feeling of folk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, certainly because some of the songs are medieval, people have given them medieval arrangements over the years. But as you say, when you go to Bulgaria or any of the traditional communities that were there in the 20th century, they weren't singing with medieval arrangements. So the folky side is what we have from field recordings. And
exactly.
Kind of
It's the only thing that we can say. The rest could be in your imagination.
Right.
But yes.
Right. Well, usually I like to end these interviews by asking whether there's anything that I didn't ask about that you wanted to tell us. Can you think of anything that I skipped or I missed?
No, I think you asked me a lot, and I love it. You let me really talk about what I'm passionate about. I want to say once again that being here, singing at this place, being part of the program by the American Folk Life in the series, in this homegrown series, has been really an honor. From my heart, I say it. It's an honor. I don't dream of things like this. They come when they come, but I don't dream of them. But if I would have dreamed it, this would have been. And everybody here was so kind and nice and helpful, and including you. So it's been a pleasure, and I hope that I have more years to continue singing. That is something I really hope.
Well, we hope that for you, and we are so honored to have had you in the series.
Thank you.
And just it's such a wonderful way, as you say, to celebrate Jewish American Heritage Month with Sephardic culture for a change. So it's wonderful to have you here.
Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Susana Behar.
Thank you.